I always knew that I was different from my sister Sarah, even though she was the soul of every party. I preferred the quiet company of my computer. My name is Gina, and I've never fit into my family's ideas of what a normal daughter should be like. Sarah always reminded me how weird I am. Gina, you're such an oddball, she said, shaking her perfectly coiffed hair. All my friends think you're completely crazy. Sitting in my room and programming all day. I just shrugged my shoulders and kept typing. The rhythmic clicking of the keyboard was more soothing than any conversation with Sarah's judgmental friends while she was busy planning her next social event. I studied Python, Java, and C++. My parents never understood my passion for programming, but they couldn't argue with my grades. Gina, dear, Mom said with a note of concern in her voice. Wouldn't you like to go out with your friends instead of staring at the screen all day? But I had my own dreams, and they didn't include following Sarah's path to endless communication. When I was accepted to college with a full scholarship in computer science, even Sarah couldn't make a snide comment about it. Well, actually, I did. At least you won't have to worry about guys distracting you there. After graduating from university, I got a job at a leading mobile application development company. The salary was incredible, much more than I told my family. I knew exactly what would happen if they found out. Sarah will be standing at my door with her hand outstretched, and my parents will blame me if I refuse to help. That's why I didn't say anything. She lived in a modest rented apartment and saved every penny. My dream was simple, a country house where I could work remotely, away from the chaos of the city and nosy neighbors. A place where I could finally find peace. But life has a funny habit of throwing up funny surprises, and mine came in the form of a phone call from Sarah. Gina, she said, her voice dripping with fake enthusiasm. I'm getting engaged. And yes, before you ask, you're invited too. I knew Armando, her fiancé. And he was actually a decent guy. How he ended up with Sarah is beyond me. But I sincerely wish them all the best. However, I could tell from her tone that she would have been happier if I hadn't shown up at all. The engagement party is next month, she continued. Her voice took on that familiar condescending tone. And please, for God's sake, dress like a normal person. No t-shirts, no jeans. And please do something about your hair. You know what makeup is right? I rolled my eyes. It's a good thing she couldn't see me on the phone. Yes, Sarah, I know what makeup is. I'll dress appropriately. On the weekend after Sarah's call, I visited my parents' house. Mistake. As soon as I entered, I was overcome by a wave of wedding fever. Mom was surrounded by wedding magazines, and Dad looked stunned by the stack of nutrition brochures in front of him. Oh, Gina. Mom said, barely looking up from her magazine. Did Sarah tell you about the engagement? Yes, I told you. I sat down at the kitchen table and grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl. So how much will it all cost? Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Well, we are thinking of taking out a loan. I almost choked on my apple. A loan? For a wedding? Why not use that money for something practical, like a down payment on their first home? Mom looked at me like I just suggested they have a wedding in a dumpster. Gina, dear, you just don't understand these things, she said with a touch of pity, leaning back in her chair. You spend all your time on computers, you don't even have a boyfriend. Every girl dreams of a perfect wedding day. Every girl except me, apparently. That's exactly what I mean, I muttered, holding back my irritation. Mom threw up her hands in exasperation. You don't understand women's affairs at all. When was the last time you went on a date? I pressed my lips together so as not to respond sharply. There's no point in telling them about the guys I've dated who couldn't accept that I earn more than them. or about those who expected me to give up my career as soon as things got serious. Instead, I calmly said, I just think that getting into debt for one day is too much. Well, no one asked for your opinion. Sarah's voice came from behind me. I didn't even hear her come in. Some of us actually care about making memories and having nice things, she continued, leaning against the door frame. I turned to face her. And some of us care about financial responsibility. Sarah rolled her eyes. God, you're such a bore. That's why you're still single. You know, everything has to be practical with you. Where is the romance, the spontaneity? Probably where your common sense is, I muttered to myself. Mom gave me a warning look. Gina, if you're only going to be negative, maybe you should go home. I stood up, suddenly tired of it all. Maybe I should. Good luck with your loan applications. As I walked to the car, I could hear their excited voices through the open window. They went back to discussing the wedding plan. I wondered if they would notice if I didn't show up for the engagement. But I knew I had to go. At least to prove that I can be normal whenever I want. The month passed faster than I expected. On the day of Sarah's engagement, I really made an effort. I bought a navy blue dress that cost more than I usually spend on clothes for a whole season. I even went to the salon and let the craftsman work on my usually disheveled hair. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Clear cheekbones, perfect styling, light but effective makeup. I almost looked it. Like Sarah. A taxi dropped me off in front of one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Sarah rented the entire establishment for her engagement, which made my practical mind shudder at the unnecessary expense. The place was decorated with flowers that must have cost thousands of dollars. Champagne flowed freely. I went inside, catching the appraising glances of the guests. Already divided into groups, they plunged into conversations. Sarah's college friends were huddled at the bar, giggling and taking selfies. The groom's family occupied several tables at the entrance. Everyone looked duly impressed by the extravagant performance. My parents moved around the room like they were at a diplomatic reception. Mom vigorously introduced people to each other, and Dad nodded with a forced smile. I looked around for my card, assuming that I would be sitting at the family table, next to Sarah. After all, I was the bride's only sister. I checked every table at the entrance. Then the middle section. Nothing. Finally, I went over to my mom. Where should I sit? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Mom looked me up and down. A strange expression appeared on her face, a mixture of surprise and disappointment. Even in this expensive dress, with a professional hairstyle, I still didn't seem to meet her standards. Oh, honey, she began, lowering her voice. We just thought you'd be more comfortable. Not at the main table. I frowned. What? You know, Mom pretended to fiddle with her bracelet, avoiding my gaze. There are so many people here. You don't really like noisy companies. Where's my card? I forced myself to speak calmly. Mom didn't answer. At that moment, Sarah came up to us, beaming with pleasure. Ah, you're already here. She gave me a quick glance. Wow. You even did your best. Sarah, I ignored her sarcasm. Where's my desk? She grinned. Oh, do you really need a place? I thought you wouldn't be long. You don't really like such events. I clenched my fists. Did you put me in a separate seat? Don't be offended, Gina, Mom hurriedly intervened. We were just thinking that you would feel uncomfortable among Armando's guests. You mean I don't fit into the picture? She shrugged. Honey, don't start, Mom sighed. I exhaled slowly. Everything was boiling inside, but I wouldn't let them see how it hurt me. Where exactly is my desk? Sarah waved her hand towards the back corner of the hall. I followed her gesture and saw a small table, almost right next to the kitchen. It was obviously added at the last moment. There was a single card with my name on it. Mom put her hand on my shoulder. We just wanted you to be comfortable. I gently shook off her hand and headed for my seat. The only thing that was pounding in my head was that they still didn't believe that I could be normal. I walked over to the indicated table, my heels tapping on the marble floor. Of course, there was a card with my name on it. 1 chair. 1 table. At a table for 6. I stood there, staring at him, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. What the hell, Sarah? I muttered this under my breath before turning abruptly on my heel, looking for my sister. I found her, of course, in the spotlight. Surrounded by her bridesmaids, she cooed coquettishly while they enthusiastically looked at her wedding ring. Sarah, can we talk in private? I asked, trying not to show my annoyance. She rolled her eyes, but still followed me to a quiet corner of the hall. What is it? I could barely contain my voice. And please don't make a scene. The stage? Sarah crossed her arms over her chest. You put me alone at a table in the corner, like some kind of outcast, and you're worried that I'm going to make a scene? Oh, come to your senses, she snapped, annoyance creeping into her voice. What did you expect? You're a total loser, Gina. All my friends think you're weird, and Armando's family shouldn't be exposed to your oddities. I felt something break inside me. Do your friends think I'm weird because I have a successful career? Because I don't live off my parents? Because I don't post every second of my life on social media? Sarah rolled her eyes. No, because you're the one who cares more about computers than people. Her voice rose, attracting the attention of the guests nearby. Before I could reply, Mom appeared next to me. What's going on here? Sarah just called me a loser and a freak, I said, hating the treacherous tremor in my voice. Mom's face hardened. Gina, stop making a scene. It's your sister's special day. Just go sit at your desk and try not to draw attention to yourself. I looked between them, these two women who were supposed to be my family, and realized that I had nothing more to do here. Without another word, I turned around and headed to my isolated table in the corner. I sat there for exactly 30 minutes. I watched as Sarah and Armando officially announced their engagement. I saw my parents beaming with pride. I watched the others in the room laughing, drinking champagne, having fun. And I was sitting alone. In the shadows. Finally, I've had enough. I grabbed my purse, got up, and walked quietly to the exit. No one noticed me leaving. And if he did, no one cared enough to stop me. The taxi ride home was a blur. As soon as I entered the apartment, I kicked off my expensive heels and changed into comfortable clothes. Yes, the same t-shirt and jeans that Sarah despised so much. And then I did what I always did when I needed to deal with my emotions. I started applying coatings. Hours turned into days. Days and weeks. I threw myself into my work, taking on additional projects, earning substantial bonuses. My bank account grew, while contacts with my family were reduced to 0. No phone calls. No messages. No visits. It was as if I had been erased from their lives. And, to be honest, it felt like a relief. That's when I decided to stop waiting and start living. I had more than enough savings for the down payment on the house, and my salary allowed me to cover the mortgage without any problems. I contacted a realtor named Lisa and told her exactly what I was looking for. Single-family house. Preferably isolated. I have a good internet connection because I work remotely. And the complete absence of nosy neighbors. Lisa laughed. I think I know a place. She was right. The house was perfect. A modern country cottage with a spacious porch encircling its perimeter, surrounded by a large enough plot of land to ensure complete privacy. The previous owners had already installed high-speed internet, and the home office had huge windows overlooking a small pond. "I'm taking him," I said as soon as we finished the tour. The mortgage process went smoothly, and after a few weeks I became a homeowner. I told exactly 2 people about this, my best friend from college and my group leader at work. My family didn't need to know about it. They lost that privilege the moment they sent me into the shadows at Sarah's engagement party. I moved in gradually, first setting up my home office, then furnishing the rest of the house, room by room. For the first time in my life, I felt completely at peace. No drama. Without judgment. Just me and my space. But peace, as I soon learned, was a luxury that my family did not allow me to enjoy for long. 2 weeks after I settled into my new home, my mother's number lit up on my phone. "Gina, we need to talk," she said in her stern tone. "Come to the house tomorrow afternoon. Your sister will be there too." I should have known something was wrong by her voice. I had to ask why they suddenly decided to see me after weeks of silence. But I didn't do it. Instead, I agreed to come right into the ambush they had planned. I turned into the driveway of my parents' house, noticing Sarah's flashy red convertible parked there. The car was a gift from our parents for her graduation, just one of the many ways they demonstrated their preference. I parked my humble hybrid behind him and took a deep breath before entering. The moment I crossed the threshold, I realized that something was wrong. Her parents and Sarah were sitting in the living room, lined up like a panel of judges, ready to pronounce a verdict. Their faces were stern and accusing, and Sarah had that smug look she always assumed when she thought she'd cornered me. "Sit down," Dad said, pointing to a lone chair across from them. I sat down. My programmer's brain was already scrolling through possible scenarios, trying to debug what could provoke this family tribunal. "What's going on?" Sarah leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. "Why don't you tell us about your new home, Miss Successful Programmer?" My blood froze in my veins. How did they find out? And then it dawned on me. "Lisa," I said in a flat voice. "Your friend Lisa is my realtor." Bingo. Sarah clapped her hands sarcastically. Imagine my surprise when she mentioned that she helped my sister with a beautiful country house. To my sister, who lives in a modest apartment and never seems to have extra money to help her family. Mom intervened before I could respond. "We know everything, Gina." Her voice was icy. "We know how much you earn. We know about your bonuses. You've been lying to us all this time." Was she lying? I stood up, anger replacing the initial shock. I wasn't lying about anything. I just decided not to share my financial information with you. It's not the same thing. It's the same thing. Sarah snapped. "You hid it from us, lived like a hermit, making everyone think that it was difficult for you." I laughed bitterly. "When do you think I should have shared this information? At your corner table at your engagement party?" Sarah narrowed her eyes. "You were ashamed of me when you thought I was a pathetic loser. And now you're mad because I'm actually successful." Mom shook her head. "You're getting it all wrong, honey." "No, I get it exactly right." I crossed my arms over my chest. "You think I owe you something." Dad finally spoke, his voice softer, but still full of reproach. "We're your family, Gina. Shouldn't a family help each other? Are you saying that I should help you?" "Sarah's getting married," he continued, ignoring my question. "And the wedding will be expensive. We thought you could contribute your share." My share. They weren't mad at me for being secretive. They were angry because they found out that I could afford to live well and not share it with them. "So that's what it's all about," I grinned, shaking my head. I didn't tell you about the house because I knew this conversation would happen. You don't want to know how I'm doing. You want money. Sarah flushed. How dare you? It's not about money, it's about family. Family? I raised my eyebrows. Are you talking about family? You who called me a loser at your own engagement party. You who put me away so I wouldn't embarrass you in front of Armando's family. This family? Sarah's face contorted with anger. You've always been selfish, Gina. You only think about yourself. Really? I laughed. If anyone here is selfish, it's you. You've been getting everything you wanted from your parents all your life, and now you're demanding the same from me. Mom sighed. Please, Gina. It's not that hard. Your sister. No. I said it calmly, but firmly. What? Sarah blinked in disbelief. No, Sarah. No, Mom. I won't give you a dime. There was silence in the room. Mom looked confused for the first time. Sarah, on the other hand, her face turned purple with anger. You're going to regret this, Gina, she said through clenched teeth. I looked at her with a slight smile. Dad raised his hand, trying to calm us down. Gina, the point is that you've never shown any interest in helping your family. His voice was flat, but there was a hint of reproach in it. We're taking out loans for your sister's wedding while you're buying country houses. Interest in helping. I couldn't believe my ears. Have any of you ever shown interest in my life? I looked at each of them in turn. You have never entered my apartment. They never asked about my work, except to dismiss it as if I was just sitting at my computer all day. The only time you pay attention to me is when you need something. Or when you want to criticize me. They all started talking at the same time. We could use help with Sarah's college education. I needed a new car last year. The deposit for the wedding venue is overwhelming us alone. I raised my hand, silencing them. I stopped making excuses for my success. My voice sounded unexpectedly calm. I stopped feeling guilty for managing my money well. I'm leaving. Wait a minute. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, and there was something disturbing in it. We didn't really invite you here to fight for your secret wealth. I stopped at the door, tense with anticipation. Since you can afford country houses, Sarah continued, her voice turning sickeningly sweet. You can pay for my wedding. I felt laughter rising inside me. Not a happy laugh, but that nervous, hysterical chuckle that comes out when something is so absurd that it's impossible not to laugh. Don't you dare laugh at us. Sarah jumped up, her face flushed. You owe us. I don't owe you anything, I said, and my voice was deadly calm. Especially after the way you've treated me all my life. Just like you treated us. Sarah screamed. You are the one who lived a lie, hiding your success from your family. I turned to her completely. You're right, Sarah. I am successful. I paused, enjoying the moment. I'm a loser who can afford to buy my own house. And you know what? Losers don't pay for their successful sisters' weddings. The look of shock on her face was almost worth all the drama. Gina. Mom gasped. How dare you throw her own words in her face? Why not? I shrugged my shoulders. That's what she meant when she cornered me at her engagement party. She meant it every time she called me ugly, weird, or crazy. So why don't I say what I mean? I headed for the door, ignoring their protests and accusations. Before I went out, I turned around one last time. Do you know what's funny? If only you had ever shown a sincere interest in me. If you had ever treated me like a real family member, and not like a disgrace that has to be hidden. I might really want to help. I looked straight into my mom's eyes, then Sarah's. But you made your choice. And I made mine. I went home to my beautiful new house, where I felt lighter than I had ever felt in recent years. But the universe hasn't finished testing me yet. The next day, when I was setting up my home office, there was an aggressive knock on the door. I looked at the security camera screen. Sarah. She was standing there, clutching what looked like papers in her hands. I opened the door, but remained standing in the doorway, blocking her way. What do you want here? She silently shoved a stack of papers at me. This is a list of wedding expenses. The deposit for the venue is next week. I looked down, but I didn't even take the paper. The numbers were astronomical. Enough to make a down payment on another house. Are you showing me this because? Sarah lifted her chin. Because you're paying for it. She said it as if she was explaining the obvious. Mom and Dad are waiting for this. And that's what I deserve. I couldn't help but laugh. Sarah, you don't deserve anything from me. I took a step forward, looking straight into her eyes. Especially after the way you've treated me all our lives. She ran off the porch, shouting that I wasn't invited to her wedding. I called after her, not hiding my sarcasm. Don't worry, I'm not coming anyway. I already know which table you're going to put me at. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next few days brought a flurry of calls and messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Everyone suddenly became concerned about family unity and sisterly duty. Apparently, Mom was busy spreading information about my selfishness and hidden wealth. After 3 days of constant harassment from my family, I got tired of it. Each notification on the phone brought another guilt-inducing message or an angry voice message. Aunt Linda thought I was ruining the family. Cousin Mike, who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years, suddenly had a strong opinion of my responsibilities. Even my mom's friends from the bridge club wrote to me on Facebook, condemning my callousness. I was sitting in my home office, staring at the monitors, watching the messages pile up. The programmer in me knew that every problem has a solution. You just need to find the right algorithm. In this case, the solution was simple: to debug the family narrative. I opened my social media accounts and started typing. Since there seems to be a lot of confusion surrounding recent family events, let me clarify the situation. At my sister's engagement party, I sat alone at a table in the darkest corner of the restaurant, apart from all the other guests. When I asked why, my sister called me a pathetic loser and said she was ashamed of me. My own mother told me to keep quiet and not make a scene. Weeks later, when they discovered that I was doing well in my career, my sister, who was ashamed of me, suddenly demands that I pay for her entire wedding. My parents, who have never been to my apartment, now consider themselves entitled to know everything about my finances. To all the relatives who write to me about family duty, where was this concern for family unity when I was hidden at family events? Where were those messages of support when I was called a freak for pursuing my career? I bought my house with the money I earned through hard work. I don't have to finance anyone's life choices. End of story. I clicked publish and leaned back in my chair, waiting for a reaction. She followed faster than I expected. But not in the way I expected. The relatives fell silent. The angry messages stopped. But instead, I started receiving private messages from cousins who shared their stories about Sarah's behavior. It turned out that I wasn't the only one she treated so badly. My phone rang. Mom. I declined the call. It rang again. Sarah. Rejected it. Dad tried the next one. Rejected it. They kept trying, switching between their phones, even calling from unknown numbers. I've blocked them all. And then there was a loud knock on my front door. I looked at the security camera screen. My parents and Sarah were standing on my porch. Sarah screamed, waving her arms. Mom was crying. Dad looked confused. I turned on the speaker on the porch, another technical novelty that I had thoughtfully installed. Go home. I have nothing to say to any of you. We can talk about this. Mom's voice sounded worried. Do you want to talk now? I answered through the speaker, crossing my arms over my chest. After ignoring me for so many years? After trying to shame me into paying for Sarah's wedding? No, thanks. You're destroying this family. Sarah screamed directly into the surveillance camera. I couldn't help but laugh. No, Sarah. You and Mom and Dad did this many years ago. I just finally stood up for myself. They stayed on my porch for another hour, alternating threats and pleading requests. But I kept working, letting the noise-canceling headphones drown out their voices. Finally, they left. But not before Sarah screamed that I was definitely not invited to her wedding, as if that was supposed to be a punishment. Life is moving forward, regardless of whether you are ready for it or not. I heard from my aunt that my parents ended up taking out a huge loan for Sarah's wedding. Mom had to give up weekly spot treatments, and Dad postponed retirement. But they still told anyone who would listen the story of the ungrateful eldest daughter who refused to help her sister arrange the wedding of her dreams. Or at least the version of it that Sarah could afford with the help of her parents' loan. I've seen the photos on social media. The wedding looked just like any other expensive ceremony. Immaculately designed, verified to the last detail and completely impersonal. It was like a replica of her friends' weddings, expensive, intricate, and completely devoid of personality. I noticed something else. There was a distant aunt sitting at the corner table where I was isolated at her engagement party. A woman who had divorced a year earlier and was now also considered a family disgrace. History repeats itself. Now, despite having zero desire, my social media ads still keep me up to date on family news. She told me that her parents had to significantly reduce their lifestyle in order to cope with the payments on the wedding loan. Sarah constantly complains that her modest wedding is solely my fault, conveniently forgetting to mention the incident with the table in the corner when telling people his version of events. As for me, I'm thriving. My house has become my refuge. I have set up a perfect home office equipped with the latest technology, which my team likes at work. Now I can have virtual meetings without background distractions. I even started mentoring young programmers in my spare time, especially girls who, like me, prefer computers to conformity. I received another wedding invitation last week. But this time it was from one of the young women I mentor. She's getting married to her girlfriend. And her conservative family refused to attend. Will you sit at the family table? What is it? She asked me, smiling uncertainly. You're more of a family to me than they've ever been. I agreed. Sometimes the family you were born into is not the family you'll end up in. Sometimes the white crow in the family is not the one who has problems. And sometimes sitting alone at a table in the corner is the first step to finding your own place in the world. As for my parents and Sarah, I am sure that they will tell everyone who listens to them the story of the terrible daughter and sister who refused to pay for the wedding. But I finally got it. Their opinion of me does not define me. My value is not measured by their acceptance or rejection. I'm Gina, a programmer who bought her own house, built her own life, and finally stopped apologizing for not fitting in with other people's expectations. And I wouldn't want it to be any other way. Write a comment on what you think about this story and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. See you soon.